All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The Atlantic Coast Conference is seeking to maintain its presence as a power league, and they are not going to go down without a fight. Now, in recent months, we've seen the ACC settle with both Clemson and Florida State in their battles to get out of the current grants of rights. And now the league is looking to strengthen itself with better conference and non conference scheduling as well in both football and men's basketball. You look at the recent scheduling agreement between Clemson and Notre Dame, and it's a scenario where, okay, we know that Notre Dame has the current scheduling agreement with the ACC. They take on five ACC opponents each year, but now we're going to see Clemson and Notre Dame face each other um, for the next 12 years. And I think this is beneficial for both programs. I mean, you look at it, Clemson, you know, views themselves as a national power, and rightfully so. I mean, we're talking about the Tigers having won two national championships in the last decade or so, and they're a perennial playoff team. Uh, whether it was a 14 playoff or now the 12-team playoff, and Dabo Sweeney continues to have a marquee program to the point that a lot of people are expecting Clemson to be a top five team when the upcoming season begins. And of course, when you think about Notre Dame, you think about football. And Notre Dame just got to the championship game this year. Things are looking well with this program for Marcus Freeman. And of course, if you're Notre Dame and an independent, you rely on your strength of schedule more than other teams because you don't belong to a conference. On top of that, more conference games in football between the premier teams. And I think that right there is important because the strength of the ACC, it has to be Clemson, it has to be Miami, and it has to be Florida State. And of course, Florida State had a big time down year in 2024. They went 1-7 in football. I do expect them to be better. Clemson, for the most part, has been there, and we're seeing Miami make strides under Mario Cristobal, but nonetheless, these programs have to carry this league. And I think you think about it. You've got a 17-team conference, no more divisional format for any of these leagues. Okay, but with that said, I know it's a kind of like almost like a round robin. Everybody plays everybody within a couple of years for all of these leagues, but you need those continuous games. With all of that said, that are going to have eyes on your product. And I'm saying product because it's collegiate, but it's a business. Okay. And that's what the ACC needs to do. They need to have their best teams playing each other all the time, each and every year. Football wise, pardon me, basketball wise, excuse me, we're seeing the ACC take away two conference games in men's basketball in order to give themselves more conference flexibility, more scheduling flexibility. Okay, this year we saw Duke get to the Final Four. A couple of years ago, we saw Miami. A couple of years ago, we saw both Duke and North Carolina get to the Final Four. First time they ever faced off in the NCAA tournament. Nonetheless, it's one of those where the ACC continues to be a top heavy league from the standpoint of men's basketball. They're looking up at the Big Ten getting more bids than them, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC is basically, even though they're a 17-team league in basketball, they're struggling to get uh, four, maybe five bids to the NCAA tournament, and in some cases, we've seen the Big East get more bids than the ACC for men's basketball. I'll tell you like this: some of these schools that are in the ACC, they're not carrying their weight. Okay. You look at it, and I feel like some of these schools flat out are there to collect a paycheck, and there's nothing else to it for them. And I think that is a big problem. You look at how the ACC stacks up against the likes of the Big Ten and the SEC. And in my opinion, the gap is wide. And I think one of the biggest reasons is you look at expansion. When anytime that the SEC or the Big Ten have expanded, they've looked at brands. Okay, the ACC has looked at schools, and it is a big difference. And bringing in, if you're the SEC, bringing in Texas and Oklahoma really perks people up. Okay, to watch what you have. Same thing with the Big Ten, bringing in USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. It was, almost like a scramble drill, if you will, when the ACC brought in Stanford and Cal and SMU, and then even before taking programs or schools rather from the Big East. Syracuse has not been the same since they went to the left the Big East for the ACC. Boston College and so many others. Okay, and I think that right there has hurt the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like I said, there's a huge gap between the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC. I'll throw out a question right now. We're hearing about the Big Ten and SEC working together, scheduling wise for football. Should the ACC possibly look at something like that with the Big 12? I absolutely, truly think that they should. Okay, because you're still a power conference, but you're not going to sit up there and catch the Big Ten and the SEC. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But what you can do, you can still strengthen yourselves against a premier power conference. And I think you can have that scheduling crossover in football. And I think it's something that could benefit both the SEC, pardon me, the ACC and the Big 12. Symposium Sports, what's going on? You're saying Miami joining the ACC in 2004 hasn't produced the Big East results overall. You hit it right on the head right there. Okay, it's been one of those. You look at it from that standpoint. Miami has not come close to being the national power in football that they were once they left the Big East. Okay, Syracuse basketball. I know that they did make a Final Four since coming to the ACC. They have not been the same since they left the Big East. You could say the same for Boston College, Virginia Tech. We could go right down the list right there. It just has not worked out. You're saying you missed the old Pac-10. Listen, the Pac-10 and even Pac-12 was a strong league for both basketball and football, not to mention all the other sports that the Pac-12 and Pac-10 had that produced Olympic athletes, track and field, baseball. We can go swimming. We can go right down the list. Okay, the Big Ten. The Big Ten's very top heavy. We know that, but like I said, the Big Ten and the SEC have something over the ACC and the Big 12, which is they have brands. Okay, but I think right now the ACC is in scramble mode, trying to get this thing, figured out, trying to get some semblance of order. But nonetheless, what you have to do as a conference, you've got to go out there and you've got to win those games against the other big boys. And you look at the ACC, okay, they already have annual games in football against the SEC. Florida plays Florida State, Georgia and Georgia Tech, and Clemson and South Carolina. You've got to go out there and win those games. We saw South Carolina go to Death Valley and knock off Clemson last year. Georgia Tech, they were close last year when they went to Athens and took Georgia to overtime. But nonetheless, close ain't going to get it done. You got to find a way to get over that hump. Florida State, they've won their fair share of games against Florida. Don't get me wrong. Last year was a down year for the Seminoles. Let's see if they can bounce back. But nonetheless, if you're the ACC, you need those games right there. Okay, those are some of your premier games that you've got to go out there and win because it puts more eyes on your league. I'll tell you like this: football wise and basketball wise, I've said it before and I'll say it again. In Symposium, just to add to your point, I feel like the ACC is carrying a lot of dead weight when it comes to both men's basketball as well as football. You look at it, SMU was a pleasant surprise for the ACC in football last year. You know what Clemson is capable of. Miami finally looks like they're getting ahead of this thing with Mario Cristobal. Syracuse, can they put together consistent years? And it's not just about putting together those consistent years. You've got to win, and you have to prove that you got a program that can get guys to the NFL and consistently do that. Okay, but there's a lot of programs in this league, both football wise and basketball wise, that are carrying dead weight. And at the end of the day, it's hurting the league. There's dead weight in all of these leagues. Don't get me wrong, but the Big Ten, the SEC, they have a better footprint to try to stay ahead of this thing, if you will, if it makes sense to anybody out there. But nonetheless, the inaugural 12-team college football playoff, and I think this right here, in my opinion, gives you more insight as far as what I'm talking about. We saw the ACC get two teams into the tournament, but nonetheless, they were the last two seeds in the tournament. We're talking about SMU and Clemson, and of course, both of them were one and done, and that just gives you an idea of how this league is viewed. And again, you got to go out there and win those games against the other premier conferences. You've got to go out there and win your rivalry games consistently against the SEC. That is the way that you're going to go out there and get your respect. For me, some people would say, how can the ACC fix their image? It's going to be up to Clemson. It's going to be up to Miami, and it's going to be up to Florida State. Now, like I said before, Clemson is expected to be ranked high at the start of the season. You've got a returning quarterback in Cade Klubnik, and Dabo consistently has a good football team in Clemson. Miami, of course, Cam Ward. We just saw him transfer from Washington State, go to Miami, help the Canes to double-digit wins. They fell short of winning the ACC, fell short of getting to the ACC championship game, and of course the playoff. But nonetheless, we saw Cam Ward go first overall to the Titans. From there, surprisingly, we saw Georgia transfer Carson Beck go to Miami. Can that help the Canes, be a top 15, top 20 team all season long and vie for a playoff spot? And not only vie for a playoff spot, get there and possibly make a run. And then there's Florida State. Florida State has to rebound from their awful 2024 season. I think these things are important as they have to carry the banner for that league, just like Duke and Carolina carry it for basketball. And of course, for so many years, basketball wise in the ACC, you had Duke and Carolina, but you also had Maryland. Maryland left for the Big Ten. Who is going to step up and be those other consistent basketball programs for the ACC against the big boys? These things are important. And like I said, the ACC has schools while the Big Ten and the SEC have brands. And the Big 12 falls into that category as well with the schools. But I will say this about the Big 12 in comparison to the ACC. They've got better leadership right now in the form of Brett Yormark in comparison to Jim Phillips. And if you want to see a conference go under, just look at the leadership. Okay, you can ask the former Pac-12 about that and where things were with Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff. Okay, you can ask people that about the former Big East football-wise and what it got them. So that, I think, right there, Jim Phillips is trying. Jim Phillips is scrapping and clawing and doing everything possible to keep this thing together for the ACC. We've just got to see if it works. Now, I've asked this question before, and I will ask it again right now. Will Notre Dame not joining the ACC for football doom that league like it did the Big East once upon a time? There's a possibility. Okay, Notre Dame, to their credit, they know how to play both sides of the equation. We saw them do it with the Big East. They scheduled enough games with Big East foes to remain as an independent. And of course, they were a part of the Big East in all other sports. And then, of course, they kept their independence and their lovely contract, football wise, with NBC. And of course, now they're doing it with the ACC. They're scheduling 5 games with the ACC. They have more cupcake games, non-conference wise, and then they're still playing other power leagues. And I think that could hurt the ACC. Credit to Clemson. Clemson went out there and secured a long-term agreement with Notre Dame, and like I said, it is going to help both schools. But of course, the brand of Notre Dame would strengthen the ACC. But guess what? That ain't happening. Like I said a couple of months ago, do not expect Notre Dame to join a conference anytime soon. Why? Because they have a leg up on everybody else. We just saw Notre Dame get to the conference, to the college football playoff championship game. And whereas the Ohio States and the Texases of the world and the Penn States of the world, the teams that made the deeper runs into the college football playoff, they had to share that money with the entire conference. Guess what? Notre Dame got all of that money and they pocketed it for themselves. So, with that said, Notre Dame is not going to get off of their football independence. They're like, hey, that's your problem, not ours. So, I look at it, it could be a problem. But again, like I said before, Jim Phillips and company, they're going to try to do, and they are trying to do everything possible to try to keep this thing afloat. We've seen it before with the Big East. We've seen it before with the Pac-12, the original Pac-12, where you tried to do things, but everybody needs to be on the same page. This time around, I think there could be more of an opportunity for everybody to be on the same page, because if you're Clemson and Florida State, you did come to an agreement with the ACC, but guess what? There might not be any place for you to go, because now you've got the Big Ten at 18, you've got the SEC at 16, and they might not want anybody else because you got a lot of mouths to feed. And the SEC really doesn't look at Clemson and Florida State right now as a need. And I think the only way that happens is if the SEC is worried about the Big Ten poaching them. And I don't see that as a possibility either. So when it's all said and done, I think Clemson and Florida State are going to have to stay in the ACC and work this out. But nonetheless, I think everybody in this league needs to be on the same page in order to keep up with the Joneses. Like I said before, you're not going to keep up with the Big Ten and SEC. They're two runaway freight trains. And at the end of the day, the ACC is kind of like the Big 12. They're at that point, it's like it's Thanksgiving dinner when you're a 16 or 17-year-old and you feel like you're ready to be at the adult table and you really should be there, but they're still making you sit with the kids. And of course, in this case, the kids are the group of six. Okay. So if you're the ACC, you're still making good money. It's just not Big Ten SEC money, but it's still better than the group of six. And I think if you're the ACC rather, you need to do everything possible to try to keep up with the Big 12 right now and keep yourself in that platform. So let's see where it goes from there. But nonetheless, if you are the ACC, you have to take this bull by the horns. It's not just about the scheduling for football and basketball. You've got to go out there and you've got to win those games. You look at the NCAA tournament. If you're the ACC and you're a 17 team or 17 school conference, you got to find a way to consistently get 7, 8, or 9 of your members into the NCAA tournament. That's what the Big Ten is doing. That's what the SEC is doing. That's what the Big 12 is doing. Okay. And for the college football playoff, I know that, there's rumors about a potential expansion once more to 16 teams, which would guarantee the ACC 2 bids. But guess what? You've got to go out there and make those bids work and possibly try to get more teams. That's the bottom line. So I look at it like this: it's an opportunity for the Atlantic Coast Conference. But just because you have the opportunity does not mean that you're going to be able to seize the moment. Let's see if the ACC can do it. It's an arms race right now, and it's a battle for survival. And it's unfortunate that this is the landscape of college football, and it's having a trickle down effect on the rest of collegiate athletics. I keep talking about this. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is not getting smaller, and it's only going to hurt the sport But nonetheless, let's see what the ACC can continue to do to try to keep up with the Joneses. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Symposium Sports, I definitely appreciate you chiming in. And if you have not already, please feel free to like this page as well as subscribing to this channel. And it goes for everybody else as well. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And just like it is on the X, you could also check me out on Instagram at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Give me that follow. I'll give you the follow right back. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.